You wake up, pour something warm, and stand in a patch of morning light while your body quietly does what it has done all night. Cells divide. Old cells die. Tiny mistakes get repaired before you ever know they happened. And if one day something feels wrong, a lump, a strange pain, blood where it should not be, you live in a world with scans, biopsies, pathology labs, and doctors who know exactly what they are looking for. Your ancestors had none of that. For most of human existence, there was no word for cancer, no microscope to see it, no chemotherapy to slow it, and no machine that could look through your skin. A tumor could grow inside your body for months or years, and the only diagnosis you might ever receive was pain. So the question is simple. Before cigarettes, factories, processed food, and modern pollution, did ancient humans get cancer at all? Yes, and the evidence is much older than civilization. Here's the first thing that changes the story. Cancer does not require a modern world. It requires cells. Every time one of your cells divides, it has to copy an enormous set of biological instructions. Most copies are good enough. Some contain mistakes. Your body has repair systems, immune defenses, and built-in switches that can destroy damaged cells, but no defense is perfect forever. That basic problem existed before cities, before farming, before Homo sapiens. In 2016, researchers studying a small foot bone from Swartkrans Cave in South Africa looked inside it with high-resolution 3D imaging. The fossil, catalogued as SK7923, came from an early human relative that lived roughly 1%, 6 to 1, 8 million years ago. The inside of the bone was chaotic. Instead of the normal architecture of a healthy metatarsal, the tissue showed the destructive growth pattern of osteosarcoma, an aggressive bone cancer that still affects people today. Scientists could not tell whether the bone belonged to Homo ergaster or Paranthropus robustus, because both lived at Swartkrans. Diagnosis was clear enough to make the specimen extraordinary. Cancer was attacking the human family before the human family was even fully human. Think about that for a second. There were no chimneys on the horizon. No plastic, no diesel exhaust, no tobacco industry. Yet malignant cells were already doing something horrifyingly familiar, growing when they should have stopped. And Swartkrans was not even the oldest tumor. At Malapa, another South African site, researchers found a lesion in a vertebra from Australopithecus sediba, dated to about 198 million years ago. The individual was developmentally similar to a human child around 12 or 13. The growth was probably an osteoid osteoma, a benign bone tumor rather than cancer. Benign or malignant. The message is the same. Abnormal cell growth is ancient. But then you hit a strange problem. If cancer has been with your lineage for nearly 2 million years, why do archaeologists find so little of it? Because cancer is very good at disappearing. When you die, most of the evidence dies with you. Skin decomposes, lungs collapse, livers rot, intestines vanish. A tumor that once filled an organ can leave almost nothing behind after a few centuries, especially if the body was not naturally or deliberately mummified. Bones last. That creates a huge bias. If an ancient person had a cancer that never reached the skeleton, you may never know it existed. Even when cancer does damage bone, erosion, burial pressure, scavengers, soil chemistry, and thousands of years of decay can blur the signs until disease looks like damage, and damage looks like disease. Here's what nobody tells you. The archaeological record is not a hospital database. It is a graveyard after nature has deleted most of the files. A 2018 systematic review, led by Catherine Hunt, pulled together 154 studies and documented 272 ancient individuals with skeletal or preserved soft tissue evidence of malignant cancer covering a span from about 8 million years ago to 1900. The most commonly reported evidence was cancer that had spread into bone. That number does not tell you how common cancer really was. It tells you how hard cancer is to catch after death. And sometimes one skeleton catches it almost perfectly. Around 1200 BC, a man was buried at Amara West, an ancient settlement beside the Nile, in what is now northern Sudan. He was only about 25 to 35 years old. When researchers examined his skeleton, they found small destructive lesions scattered across multiple bones. His vertebrae, ribs, pelvis, shoulder area, and other parts of the skeleton carried a pattern consistent with metastatic carcinoma cancer that began somewhere else and spread through the body. You can almost reconstruct the final chapter. At first, maybe nothing obvious happens. Then fatigue, pain, weakness, perhaps a deep ache that moves from one part of the body to another. There is no scan to reveal the source, no biopsy to name the disease, and no oncologist to explain why the pain keeps returning. Here is the part nobody talks about. Ancient cancer did not need to wait for old age. Some cancers, including osteosarcoma, can strike the young. The Swartkrans case may have involved a young individual, and the Malapa tumor certainly appeared in a juvenile. The man from Amara West was not elderly either, so the easy explanation, ancient people died too young to get cancer, falls apart. It is partly true, but not enough. Cancer risk rises dramatically with age, and many people in the past never reached the ages where common modern cancers become most frequent. That matters. But averages can fool you, because a low life expectancy at birth is dragged downward by huge numbers of infant and childhood deaths survive the dangerous early years, and some ancient people lived for decades. The 2018 Archaeological Review found many cancer cases among adults aged 35 to 49 and people over 50. Cancer had time. Modern life, however, changes the odds. You live longer. More of your cells have more years to collect copying errors. More people survive infections, injuries, childbirth, and childhood diseases that once killed them early. A larger elderly population means more people reach the ages when cancer becomes much more likely than modern exposures. Pile on top: tobacco smoke, alcohol, obesity, air pollution, certain industrial chemicals, and some forms of radiation all increase the risk of particular cancers. Modern medicine has also become dramatically better at finding tumors that an ancient healer could never have seen. So is cancer ancient or modern? Both answers can be true, as long as you ask the right question. Cancer itself is ancient. The modern cancer burden is shaped by modern longevity, population size, diagnosis, and exposures. But your ancestors were not living in a perfectly clean paradise either. They breathed smoke from fires, they stood under intense ultraviolet sunlight, they carried viruses and bacteria. Some infections that cause cancer today, such as hepatitis viruses, HPV, and Helicobacter pylori, belong to a category of biological threats far older than modern industry. And underneath every environmental risk sits the oldest risk of all, being made of dividing cells. That is the uncomfortable trade. Your body survives because cells can reproduce. Skin closes over wounds. Blood is replaced. The lining of your gut renews itself constantly. Without cell division, you do not heal. But every act of copying creates another chance for something to go wrong. Here is what does not make sense until you think about it. Cancer is not an outside invader like a wolf, a parasite, or a spear wound. It is your own biology breaking its own rules. That is why ancient people could have it without understanding what it was. By the 2nd millennium BC, Egyptian medical texts were already describing hard swellings and tumors of the breast. The Edwin Smith Papyrus, copied around 1600 BC from material believed to be older, includes a famous case, often interpreted as a description of breast tumors. Its final judgment is chilling. There was no effective treatment offered. Imagine hearing that without even having the word cancer. No explanation, no cellular theory, just a growing mass beneath the skin, and the realization that the healer has reached the edge of what anyone knows. Centuries later, Greek physicians used the word karkinos, meaning crab, for certain tumors, a term associated with Hippocrates in the 5th and 4th centuries BC. The image may have come from the way swollen veins around a mass resembled a crab in its legs. The name changed. The fear did not. And yet this is where your story is completely different from theirs. An ancient person with a hidden tumor could spend months wondering why strength was disappearing. You can put a suspicious mass inside an MRI machine, slice it into digital images, sample a few millimeters with a needle, stain the cells in a laboratory, read mutations in its DNA, and choose treatments designed for that exact disease. That difference is almost impossible to overstate. Your ancestors faced cancer with 3 terrible disadvantages. They could not see it, they could not name it precisely, and they could barely stop it once it spread. Yet their bones still carried the evidence forward. A 2 million-year-old vertebra from Malapa shows abnormal growth. A 1.6 to 1. 8 million-year-old foot bone from Swartkrans shows malignant cancer. A young man buried at Amara, west around 1200 BC, shows what happens when cancer spreads across the skeleton. Ancient medical writing shows people noticing tumors long before anyone understood cells. Piece by piece, the myth collapses. Cancer is not simply the price you pay for factories, cigarettes, or modern industry. Modern life can raise certain risks, and modern longevity gives cancer more time to appear, but the disease reaches much deeper into your past. It is part of the danger built into a body that grows, repairs, and renews itself. And that should change the way you look at your ordinary morning. You are still standing in that patch of light. Your coffee is cooling. Somewhere inside you, millions of cells are dividing, copying instructions with astonishing accuracy, repairing tiny mistakes you will never feel. The miracle is not that those cells sometimes fail. The miracle is that, after nearly 2 million years of evidence, you finally live in an age that can see the failure coming. Cancer did not begin with modern humans. Our ability to fight it did.